Hey, I'm glad that you're here. Turn your Bible to James chapter 1. I'm glad that you're here this weekend. You know, it's a pastor's worry that on holiday weekends like this that you're going to come and it's just going to be you. Like one holiday weekend is I'm going to come and it's only going to be me here. Yeah. So I'm so glad that you're here with all the people traveling and all that kind of stuff. I'm so thankful that you're here. And as we start this series, Me and My Big Mouth, we're going to be talking about how our mouth does get us into trouble, but all kinds of things revolving around our speech and how God speaks a great deal about our speech. The word and our words is very important to him. One of the ways that Jesus is talked about is he is the word. And so words and our speech are very important. They carry great power. And we're going to talk about that on one of our days, just the great weight and power of our speech towards those people that we love and we care about. And so I think it's going to be a good time. Garrett wasn't on stage this morning. He's back there in the booth, and he's on baby watch. So if you see him run out the door at any point, all right, Garrett is waiting for the birth of their second child. But yeah. Now Garrett was sure it was going to happen like a week ago, and so his bet in the pool for when the baby's coming, he's already way past that. So, but we keep praying for Rachel and for them, and so we want to talk about our mouth. And so you think about this situation like this. You ever been in a situation like that where you feel like there's just no winning? That's kind of a funny, goofy kind of situation, but I think I've been in 1,000 of those. Just between me and my wife, right? I mean, it's not counting all the other people in my life, but just between me and my wife. And one of the things that they used to be in TVs and movies, they don't show it much anymore. But you remember, somebody be running through the jungle or something, and all of a sudden they stop and they're in quicksand, right? And the thing about quicksand is, right, you can't move around too much because you'll sink. If you stay still, you're just going to sink. But if you move around, you're going to sink even faster, right? And that's kind of what that situation is. And some of these situations, like your wife or your husband says, well, what do you think about this, right? I've been working on this thing, or I've got this new piece of clothing, I'm putting together this outfit, or I've been decorating this thing in the house, or I've been working on this thing or that thing. What do you think about it? And all of a sudden, I feel like, oh, I'm in quicksand. Like, this is not going to end well for me. No matter what. And my wife is a wonderful, understanding, beautiful, lovely, amazing, awesome, spectacular, did I say beautiful person? She really is. She's absolutely incredible, wonderful mother. But sometimes, and I do the same thing, ask for something and you don't necessarily want constructive criticism, right? You don't necessarily want help. What you want is, and I'm not even sure this is right all the time, because even when you get this, you don't really act like it's what you want, but you just want some affirmation, right? You want some encouragement. And so, what do you think about this thing? And I go, all right, is this a moment where, she actually wants some help and some input and some insight? She values my opinion. She thinks, I could give her some help here in this situation. Or is this a moment where she's got it all figured out the way she thinks she wants it, and she's just asking me so that I can affirm the work that she's been doing, everything that's been going on? And I've tried to figure out, which is it? Because, over here, maybe I could offer some input and some insight that could be helpful and, be beneficial to her and to our family. Over here, all I need to do is I just need to go, yeah, baby, that's perfect. Oh, I love that. I said, you came up with that? That's amazing. That's so incredible, right? And I'm not lying. I love it. I love it, all right? And so, but over here, I'm trying to figure out, all right, how do you know if it's one or the other? Because sometimes, like with me, I'll ask, and sometimes I can ask, like I'll just read through stuff. I've told y'all I'm real sensitive, about, always wanting to do a good job preaching. I love this. Whenever I give this illustration, y'all are always so sweet after the service. You go, oh, you're great. You did a good job, right? But I love that. So everybody loves a pat on the back, right? Oh, good. And then, sit down at lunch with Christy and say something about the message or the service or something. And she goes, it's really good. And I go, what do you mean by that? What are you saying? What part wasn't great? What part didn't you like? Did I go too long? Was it, you didn't like that illustration? You didn't like that part? And she said, it was really good. I said, all right, just tell me the truth, right? Just be honest with me. And so knowing that about myself and knowing a little bit about Christy and just people in general, thinking about, all right, is this a situation where I just go, yeah, it's great, it's awesome, and it still might not be the right thing to say, right? And over here, like, I could offer some helpful insight. There's still time to do it. It doesn't matter. Still just say, it's awesome, it's great, whatever you think, awesome, perfect, I love it, right? And then still you may not be getting out of trouble in that situation. Now, kind of joke around about that, but how quickly do these little moments escalate into something much, much bigger, right? I mean, what comes out of these moments when words are misinterpreted, our feelings get hurt, we begin to get angry, right? And then we get angry, and then we do things we don't want to do. We say things, even harsher things that we don't want to say, and we act out. And so that's really what James is going to be talking about in this passage. He's going to try and give some help into this. James is way back, if you hadn't found it already, way back in the back of the Bible. Looks like there's nothing left in my Bible here. Way back at the back, James is a very short letter. For those of you who, or some of those folks that say, you know what, the Bible's just confusing, it's not very practical, it doesn't speak to my life today. There's a couple of places I recommend people read. Proverbs is one of those places, and then the book of James. James is very practical, very straightforward, going to give you help for today, right now, where you're at. And James is actually the brother of Jesus, okay? Jesus was born to the Virgin Mary, who was married to Joseph, and then after Jesus was born, Joseph and Mary had natural children, the siblings of Jesus, and James was one of those. And James, in the beginning, didn't really believe that Jesus was who Jesus said he was. He was real confused about it. In fact, the whole family was. At times they came to get him and bring him back home. They thought he had gone crazy, and they were really worried about him. And now here, at this point, when James is writing this letter, he is the leader of the church in Jerusalem. He's one of the big-time leaders. So what happened? Well, I think, we'll look back over history of the church. We go, all right, well, James saw Jesus raised from the dead, right? And so all these explanations for the resurrection and explain away the resurrection. You have moments like this where you see James, who is the brother of Jesus, grew up with him, and now at this point he is affirming him as Lord. That's how the book starts. He says, James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, right? How many of you have a brother or sister that you would be willing to say Lord to? You are my Lord, right? Like, I got a brother. He's 5 years older than me. He wasn't kind to me growing up. Not a nice guy. All right, we're good friends now. I kind of joke around, but to speak that highly of him, like, my brother has accomplished a lot in his life. He's a pastor too. He's a great servant of God. Done a lot of good for other people. I mean, he pastors a church that has thousands of people in it, but even all of that, it's kind of hard for me just to speak real nicely about him, right? Because he's my brother, right? He beat me up a bunch over the remote control, okay? So it's just, the Atari controller, that kind of thing. And so it's just hard to really speak really nicely about him. But here's James saying that Jesus is the Lord. He is Jesus the Christ. And so where we're going to pick up reading is James chapter 1, verse 19, okay? It says this. And this is some great, great advice for you. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen and slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Now, this is great, great advice. Before we start talking about talking, let's first start talking about listening, all right? The best way to control your mouth is to begin by just don't speak at all right? And so this is really good advice, whether you believe in Jesus or not. This is just great advice. This is great advice for marriage, for children, raising children. This is great advice for being a student, for being a coworker, being a friend. This is really good advice. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. What does it mean to be quick to listen? Right? It means that should be the first thing that you should be trying to do, right? In any moment, that should be the first thing that you should be trying to do. Now, James kind of leads us to to helping us to understand that really what he's talking about are moments of conflict. He says, slow to become angry. And so we're going to kind of think in that direction. But really just in any circumstance in life, this is really good advice to be quick to listen and to understand the other person. Because in any conflict that you have, the other person has a reason for being upset and for saying the thing that they're saying or doing the thing that they're doing. And so trying to understand where they're coming from. And even just, forget conflict, but just getting to know people and beginning to understand people. And one of the things that we should be doing as Christians all the time is opening up our lives to other people's lives. We're called to make disciples. That's to ask other people to come and to follow Jesus and then to help them to follow Jesus. That means we need to be open to relationships, all right? We need to always be open to new relationships. And you may think, I got plenty of relationships to manage right now, right? I got more than I can handle. But if we're called to make disciples, that means we need to be open to new relationships. And so you might open yourself up to new relationships. You start looking around, you look at other people, and you go, I kind of know what kind of guy that is. I know what kind of woman that is. You size them. Does anybody else do that? I mean, just like immediate. It's not even conscious. You look at somebody, you size them up. That guy's a redneck. That guy's a whatever. That woman's this. That woman's that. I bet I know what kind of truck they drive, or what kind of music they listen to. If they go to church or if they don't, and what. You just size them. I got them sized up. I know who that person is, right? And then you mess up and actually start talking to them and you go, I was wrong, right? And maybe some of the things you thought were right? But you ask a question, you find out a little more. You ask a question, you find out a little more. I've tried to give you that advice. Something I learned a long time ago is just ask one more question. Always ask just one more question, and you never know what it is that's going to be opened up to you and be opened up to your experience. And one of the cool things about it is as you begin to see different people and their life experience, look, if we just took time, if we just said, all right, we're going to stay here for the rest of the day. And so let's everybody come up here one at a time, and let's just ask them some questions, right? And you would be, somebody said, not me, all right? You'd be blown away at the stories you'd hear. You'd be blown away at how God has brought people through some of the darkest things, some of the most amazing things, how God's brought them, up to this place and they've come down through here. You'd be amazed at what some of the people in this room have done. You go, I didn't know they could do that, right? You'd be amazed at how they've helped people and the conflicts that they've come through. You'd be absolutely blown away just by the small group in here. If we all just took time, you would be blown away. And I hope that what happens for me all the time is I get to hear your stories, and I feel blessed in that way that I get to hear a lot of stories. What it does for me is it makes me just go, God, you are big. I mean, I know God's big, but each one of those things it just adds on. It just adds on. And I go, God is amazing. He has the ability, he has the power to interact and to do these things in all these different ways and all these experiences and all these lives, all these different backgrounds and walks of life. And I go, man, there's no place that God can't reach into and do something. It's absolutely incredible. My worship for God just gets that much greater. I go, how great thou art, right? How great thou art. It should swell and get bigger over the course of our lifetime, right? And so that's one thing. This is a real positive. But when we think about conflict, this is just really good advice. If we could be the one to, in the middle of that conflict, to just stop and go, all right, tell me where you're coming from. Tell me what's going on here. And I know that for many of you in here, myself included, that is not what you want to do, right? What you want to do is tell them, right? You want to tell them this and this and this, and I'm also going to tell you this, and I need to tell your mama something too, and then I'm going to tell you where you can go, all right? And then I'm going to tell you, right? That's what you want to do, because this person has messed up, they've offended you, they've done something absolutely wrong, they said something wrong, and you want to tell them, you want to straighten them out. They need to be straightened out, right? They're wrong. All right. We're going to get some help from James on this, but here's advice from James, the brother of Jesus, calls him Lord. leader of the early church, willing to die for Jesus, he says, here's how you should handle these conflicts. You should be quick to listen, so just be quiet. Slow to speak. Ask a question, ask another question, and slow to become angry. I think that when we are quick to listen and slow to speak, and we ask, the slow to become angry is something that we should do, but it's also something that will result from being slow to speak and quick to listen. He says the result of not doing that is this: anger builds up, because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. Therefore, get rid of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent, and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save you. And you think, well, maybe he's starting to talk about all kinds of other stuff now, right? Follow through, because he's gonna jump back in here about speech, all right? These aren't separate things. What happens when we are in conflict with other people, when we are not quick to listen and slow to speak, and our anger builds? What happens when that anger builds? What comes out of that? Violence, broken relationships, an excuse to do things that you shouldn't do. I'm mad at my wife because she did this to me. My anger builds, and that means I can do this over here because she's this over here, right? Evil comes out of anger. And he's warning you against that. He's warning us against that. He says, so slow down. Let's work through this conflict, because the result, if we don't, is anger is going to build, and anger produces all kinds of unrighteousness, evil in our lives, and it destroys us and destroys relationships. You think about let's read the next passage and we'll go into that. This is in verse 22. Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Maybe you've heard that verse before, right? It's the just do it verse, the Nike verse, right? So don't just listen, but do what you hear, right? Now, this is good advice for two things, right? God has implanted his word within us, the gospel, right? And so we hear God's word, we should do what God's word says. But also, let's think about it in terms of what he's talking about, right? That we're listening to somebody else, we're listening to where they're coming from, and now let's treat them based on that. Not just on what we were angry about, but let's take in what it is that we're hearing, and let's change our behavior, let's change the way that we treat them based on what it is that we begin to understand about them. It says, if anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at himself in the mirror, and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. So that's, look at the mirror, my hair's messed up, smudge on my face. I go, oh, that's terrible. Walk away, don't do anything about it, and just act like you never saw it, right? Man, I got a lot of stuff like that in my life, right? I'm ashamed to admit it, but I got stuff that God will show me. I go, oof, I'll say it, like in my heart. I can pray it sometimes. I need to do something about that, right? I can do something about that habit, that behavior, that attitude, right? And then I walk away and I go, let's just get on with the rest of life. That's hard stuff, right? He says, don't do that. Don't do that. So, but whoever looks intently into the perfect law that gives what? Freedom. Perfect law that gives freedom, and continues in it, not forgetting what they have heard, but doing it, they will be blessed in what they do. You've experienced that too, I hope. That God's shown you something that needs to be corrected, changed, attitude, behavior, whatever it is, and you saw it and you went, absolutely, God, I see it too. Help me change it. And you didn't just walk away and forget, but you began to change your pattern of behavior. You said, maybe I don't need to go into these places. Maybe I got to separate myself from these people for a while. Maybe I got to change the way, my habits, the way I talk with my spouse or with my children, or the way, that I'm spending time in the Word or in prayer, whatever it is. And you begin to take that path and begin to work on it. And what happens? Blessing, right? Change happens. And so, they will be blessed from what they do. Now, in my experience, trying to think back over my life as just a husband and a father and a pastor, thinking about some of the ways that this really applies to my life. Big thing for me, just as a husband, is trying always to understand where Christy's coming from. Trying always to understand. Now, I'm not great at it, right? Even after 20 years, still sometimes I just want to go, well, let's just fix this problem, right? When that's not what, that sounds cliche, but it's just the way it is. She wants to talk through a certain thing, and, there's something that she's concerned about or has stress about, and I just go, are we going to fix it, or are we just going to talk about it, right? No, I just want to talk about it. Okay. But here's the thing. There's just, I need to understand better that we're different in that way, right? What is it in her that makes her want to work through it, right? Because those emotions are important to her. Talking it through with me and talking her through her emotions with me is important to her, right? And me understanding that more, right? Understanding that just that part is important to her, that I go, all right, Matt, just shut up and just listen, right? It's slow to speak, In church life, every now and then there'll be conflict come up. Thankfully, the fort just has not had much petty conflict in our past. People have all kinds of troubles in life, and we need to jump in, try and help somebody or whatever. But not like, you hear about these stories at churches where they're going to change the color of the carpet, and half the people say, well, I'm not going there anymore, right? So I've been in church life where there was some stuff like that, and I remember, and I think I've shared this with you once before, but hopefully it'll be helpful for you. We were in church, old church, rural area, and they had both instruments, all right, piano and organ. Okay, anybody grow up in a church like that where they had? All right, so there's the only instrument, no drums, no guitar, nothing like that, just piano and organ. You hold the hymnal and go, na, 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 yeah. It's kind of sound like a. Now, listen, most people nowadays, the only organ you ever hear is at a funeral or the Braves game, right? It's like when you talk about an organ, it's like it's an instrument from the past. And so things have just changed over the years. Well, this church had an organ for 100 years, whatever, and pipe organ, beautiful pipe organs worth tons of money, and then something broke in it, and the whatever. Not an organ expert, all right? So broke, and it was going to cost lots of money to fix. Lots of money. And there was another option on the table, was we get an electric organ, right? And it just plays through speakers instead of through all the pipes. And it was not going to be as much. It was still money, but it was not going to be as much to fix. And all the people, kind of practically minded folks said, well, is it going to sound a whole lot different? Nobody's going to be able to tell the difference, is what they said. Well, and it's $50,000 difference. Let's go with that one, right? For some people, it's just easy decision. But in some churches, you got to vote on everything, right? I got a motion, a second, and all those in favor. And so, but when it came time to discuss it, there was this group of people who were just upset. They were really upset about this organ, what was going on with this organ. And so they were, having all these meetings on the side and causing all kinds of trouble. And then I started hearing, they were talking about me like I was a really bad person, like I had gone in there with an axe and smashed this organ or something, just made me feel bad, and I was like, what in the world is going on with these people? Why are they so mad? And I thought, they're just nitpicks. It's just some people in life, if there's an opportunity for controversy and trouble, they like to get right on in there. Anybody like that? All right. Everybody in this room went, I'm in the same face on every one of y'all. Mm-hmm. Golly. That was good. So anyway, so I thought, well, that's what they are, right? And I'm just, yeah, nitpick, And so, but here's the thing. I'm pastoring this church, and we're going to split. We're going to fight, kill each other over this organ. We're supposed to love each other. Everybody's supposed to see Jesus in the way we love each other. This ain't good, right? And I'm, young pastor. I'm trying to figure this out. And so I go, all right, God, help me understand. Help me understand where these folks are coming from. Help me to listen to them. Be quick to listen, so to speak. So help me. and began to hear from them. And once you got past there was the anger in them. They wanted to kill you because you were going to take the thing that they wanted to hold on to or whatever. Once you got past that and you dug down in there, here's what you began to hear. That's the organ that was playing at my grandmother's funeral. That's the organ that was playing just as I am when the preacher said, come down and invite Jesus into your heart. And I was a little kid, or I was 13. I was holding on to the back of that pew. And that was the organ that was playing. And I don't care if I can hear the difference or not, but it was playing through those pipes. And that's the organ, right? And then some of you may go, well, get over it. A lot of money. But the way I began to speak to them about this issue was different after understanding where they were coming from. They weren't just trying to cause trouble. There was something behind it, right? And if we could ask questions, if we could hear from somebody. But do you think that would be helpful in your marriage? Do you think that would be helpful in your workplace? I think that'd be helpful between teachers and students. If we could just try and understand where the other person's coming from, hear where they're coming from. I was about to say, wouldn't that be helpful in the public square in politics? Just forget about that. But we as Christians, we could all agree. Wouldn't that be better? Wouldn't that be better? This passage goes on and James says this. He says, those who consider themselves religious and do not keep a tight rein on their tongues deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless. So you people who think you're good people, but anytime you get an opportunity to tear somebody down, verbally or even behind their back, said that's not what God's looking for. Even though you may show up, to church on time and do service or give money or whatever. So if you're tearing down people, if you're constantly in conflict, if you're the kind of person who always feels like somebody has offended you and you've got something against all these other people in your life, right? I know that some of you, that's probably a struggle. You probably got a feeling, and it may be something in your past, but you feel like, the world's against you or people are, out to get you or people owe you something, right? And he said, the kind of religion that doesn't control its tongue is worthless. And then there's this next verse, and I always wanted to separate these things, and it was just this time going through this passage that really connecting these and understanding this. And it's a verse you may have heard. In verse 27, it says this: religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and then to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. And I've always thought, all right, we're done talking about the tongue. It's kind of like the passage above, we're done talking about, now we're talking about get the rest of your life straight, right? But it's connected. He's talking about, so how is this connected? He says, here's, true religion, right, that's out there. You don't have control of your tongue. You're talking bad about people. That's worthless. So, but true religion that God honors, that's pure, is this: take care of widows and orphans. What do they have to do with one another? This attitude that you've offended me, that you owe me something, that I am the first one to speak, that I'm the one who's important here, that you need to hear from me, that you need to pay me, you need to take care of me, right? That attitude is one that is nowhere to be found in Christianity. Not rightly so, because our example is Jesus, right? Our example is Jesus, who humbled himself to do for those who could not do for themselves. Jesus did something for us that we could not do for ourselves. The most vulnerable people in the world, people who were without Jesus, doomed to destruction. And Jesus humbles himself and gives himself for us, all the way serving, giving, humble. And James says, if you're doing that, you're not going to be going, what about me? What about mine? You need to apologize. You need to come over here and fix this. And you're a terrible person. No, here's what you do. You throw yourself into taking care of those who are in need. Do like Jesus did. Throw yourself into taking care of the vulnerable and the needy. But when you get around and you see what real trouble is like, what real poverty, what real hurt, what real brokenness is like. And look, I'm not making small of anything anybody else has been through in here, because I know y'all been through some tough stuff. But I know every one of you has been next to somebody else and you've gone, God, thank you that that's not me. I don't know that I could handle that. I don't know what I would do. The command from God through James is follow the example of Jesus, and it is to get in there and get your hands dirty and help that person, and you're going to forget who owes you and who needs to apologize to you and who needs to take care of you, and all that anger is going to dissipate because you are focused in on the ones who cannot help themselves, just like Jesus did, willing to give his very life for those in need. And when you are engaged in that, when you are doing that, there's no room for, what about me? What about mine? Father, God, I thank you for the words of James, God, your word through him. God, I thank you that there is real help for us in our lives, because this is a part of our lives that many of us struggle with, that we feel like we've been offended or we're owed, and God, we feel like the anger's just built up inside of us. God, I pray that you would help us to understand the people around us, to understand the needs around us, and then point us to something that will change who we are inside. Point us to service and point us to you. God, I pray that if someone here this morning needs to give themselves over to you, God, that they would understand that you're not waiting to crush them or to say, I told you so, but God, you're waiting with open arms to welcome them in, to forgive them, and to make them whole. God, you reached down and did for us what we couldn't do. Thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. In the next few minutes, we're gonna have communion together, but I just want to talk about it for just a second. And this weekend, Memorial Day weekend, it's the start of summer, right? This is the start of summer, and lots of people are on the road. They're going to the beach. They're going to have barbecues over the next, tomorrow. They're going to get the day off, and for a lot of people, this is kind of what this time means. It's the beginning of summer, but we celebrate, or we have Memorial Day for a very important reason. And the reason is that we need to have moments where we remind ourselves of things. Right? It's not all tradition is bad, okay? And some of us think, we don't like tradition, we don't like old stuff. Not all tradition is bad. All right, we need to remind ourselves of certain things. And it's good so that we don't forget that we put a date on a calendar. It's good that so we don't forget that we set aside a time where we're going to gather together and be together and do certain things and go through certain ceremonies so that we remember rightly what's happened in the past, because it was so amazing. It was so good. It was so right that it needs to be remembered. And so Memorial Day, we remember those who have given their lives in service of our country. Men and women throughout the years who have for our country, or for their family, or for the people that they were standing beside when it happened, were willing to give their lives over. And we value that. We hold it up as being heroic, as being special. Why? Because we know that there is something amazing about someone doing something so extreme for someone else that couldn't do it for themselves. I'll stand in the gap. I'll stand in the way. I'll go to the dangerous place. And we go, that is amazing. We rightly should remember what has been done for us. We hold it up because it's something that God has written in the universe, is that sacrifice for those who can't do for themselves is a beautiful thing. As horrible as it may be, as horrible as a death in war, or horrible as the cross is, we said it's an amazing strength that someone would give themselves for someone who couldn't do for themselves. And so today, as we have Lord's Supper, we always remember what has been done for us on the cross. But today we're going to also remember what has been done for us here in our country. And we don't minimize the remembrance of Jesus' death and resurrection. We remember that because of him, those sacrifices are that much more important. It is that truth that filters down that we call them heroes, that we see them as heroes. And so I'm going to ask in just a moment, I'm going to ask our servers to come on up, those who are going to be serving for us. Y'all come on up, take your places. Just need a couple down one here, and then Billy, you want to head down that end, down there? All right. We got one extra there, so you guys, there you go. Thank you, John. All right, so what we'll do in a moment, we'll stand up and we'll go out to our left and come around and by section, and someone will be holding the bread for you and then the juice. And as you take, eat and drink. And what we're doing is remembering the sacrifice that was given for us on the cross. Jesus said, when you do this in remembrance of me. And today we remember what's been done for us here as Christians, but also as a country. Father, in this moment, God, would you bless these elements? God, we do not minimize in any way what has been done for us on the cross. But God, we also celebrate that example has been given over and over again throughout the history of our country. And God, we ask that you would bless those families. God, we ask for your help and your provision, that you would take care of those who have lost people important to them. God, I know that in our community of faith here, that there are men and women who have lost people close to them, men that they served beside, cared very much for. God, I know that there is great sacrifice that is closely observed all around this room and in our community. God, would you comfort them? Would you be with them? God, would you help us to remember well what has been done for us? We are a blessed people. We are a blessed people, and we give you thanks and praise. In Jesus' name, amen.